Today's passage is Exodus 14, verses 21 and 22. How did Moses cross the Red Sea? How did he get across? Did he swim? No, no. Did he walk? No, no. Did he run? No, 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 no. How did he get across? God blew with his wind, puff, 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 puff. He blew just enough, enough. And through the sea, God made a path. That's how they got across. Exodus 14, verses 21 and 22 explain that song in a bit more detail. So let's read it. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night, notice that there was a night scene, the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right hand, also on their right and on their left. First of all, we see then Moses' obedience. Verse 21, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. This act of faith, though simple, was the visible human action behind the divine miracle. Moses did what he could, and God did what only he could do. Other scriptures affirm Moses' obedience. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 29, by faith they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land. Psalm 106, verse 9, he rebuked the Red Sea also, and it dried up, so he led them through the depths. Moses' outstretched hand became a symbol of faith cooperating with God's power. This stretching out of the hand, of course we read this again in verse 16 and then earlier on in the chapter, reminded Israel that God used Moses as his chosen instrument. God could have acted without Moses' gesture, but included his servant in the miracle to demonstrate partnership in divine purpose. This act illustrates that faith expresses itself in obedience before the miracle appears. Then we see the effect. The Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind all that night. This was a supernatural event involving natural elements. God used his creation to accomplish his will, but the timing, scale, and result were entirely miraculous. Scripture confirms that God uses power over nature. Psalm 78, verse 13, he divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and he made the waters stand up like a heap. Psalm 114, verse 3, the sea saw it and fled. The phrase, all that night, shows us this was not impulsive or chaotic. It was a controlled, sovereign act of God, slowly forcing the waters back to create a passable path. The strong wind emphasizes God's sovereign rule over creation. In the next chapter, chapter 15 in the song, they say, you blew with your wind, the sea covered them. Even if God used a natural phenomenon, the precision was supernatural, the timing, the complete drying of the ground, and the walls of water. So we see God did make a path, and the sea came dry land, and the waters parted. The expression dry land or dry ground stresses the completeness of the miracle. This was no muddy, half-drained bog. God removed every hindrance. Joshua 2, verse 10, Rahab recounts his miracle, for we heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you. Nehemiah 9, verse 11, you divided the sea before them, so that they went through on dry land. God not opened the sea, he prepared the path. God never leads his people where he has not already made provision. The dividing of the waters is described as heaps. In the next chapter, chapter 15, verse 8, like walls stacked upright, held in place by divine power. This imagery appears again at the crossing of the River Jordan in the book of Joshua, chapter 3, showing God's repeated miracles to build faith in new generations. And so the children of Israel went into the middle of the sea on dry ground, and this required extraordinary courage. The miracle opened the way, but the people still had to walk into it. Hebrews 11:29, their walking was an act of faith, contrast with the Egyptians who attempted without faith and drowned. Psalm 77:19, your way was in the sea, your path in the great waters, and your footsteps were not known. The crossing was not on the shore, not near the ears, but in the middle of the sea, surrounded by the supernatural walls of water. What terrified Egypt sustained Israel. God's presence changes everything. Their obedience became a defining salvation event in the Old Testament, as the next chapter testifies in the song. Then we see the waters were a wall of water on the right and on the left. It's not symbolic language. Israel walks through a corridor of divine protection. Psalm 136:13, to him who divided the Red Sea in two, for his mercy endures forever. Isaiah 51 verse 10, are ye not the one who dried up the sea that the redeemed might pass over? The walls reveal God as both deliverer and defender. The sea that should have swallowed Israel instead stood at attention before its creator. Their path was literally carved through what should have killed them, a picture of salvation itself. And so it's just amazing to see, and it must have been amazing to actually do it. Maybe that's one of the events. Sometimes you have that question, if you could go back to one Bible event, what would it be? And this would be one up there. It's hard to pick one, isn't it? But the point is here is that God did an amazing miracle. Thank you for listening.